And I would wake up in the mornings crying. I would go to sleep crying at night. I would wake up crying in the mornings. I would try caffeine, all sorts of things just to try and give me that extra boost in the morning. Sometimes I would feel like I would rather anything happen than me having to go to work.
Right, so we'll start with a mindful minute. So we're just taking a moment here to take a nice deep breath. And allowing yourself to settle in, bringing your awareness to the body. Just giving yourself this time to be fully present here with the Not So Black and White podcast. Just settle in and get ready to enjoy. Slowly opening your eyes. Well, I'm going to let you, Tammy, do our introduction for our very first episode of the Not So Black and White podcast. Here we are.
Today, we are going to be talking about, on our very first episode, something that I'm sure is dear to Deanna's heart because he helps save people from this thing. Something that is also dear to my heart because I have been through it without even realizing until it was way late. So today we are talking about burnout, what it is, how to prevent it, how to spot it, and how to move on and grow through it. We are here every week. We both come together to just shine our light for the collective, for everyone to see so that you can, has used her experiences to help everyone else.
Burnout is a near and dear topic to me, as Tammy mentioned, not only because I like to try to help people with it, but because I suffered from that myself. And so I'll share a little bit about that, my experience and the work I do. And then Tammy, you can share your story as well. So I think the biggest thing that I want to say about burnout is that it doesn't happen overnight. It is something that is a gradual and cumulative experience. And it really does look different for different people. And so the World Health Organization actually updated the definition for burnout in 2019, which I think is really important because it brings it to light for everyone that burnout is real. It is a thing. Now, the World Health Organization defines burnout as very specific to the workplace. So I think that that is important to mention because in my experience, it came from the workplace, yes, but because I had trauma prior to that, that was not healed, that was just compounded by the burnout experience that I was having specifically related to my work. So let's see, I wanted to look up and have the definition handy for you here about burnout from the World Health Organization. And so I know that there are 3 things that the World Health Organization identifies as the pillars, if you will, of burnout. And one of them is extended period of time of exhaustion. A second one is cynicism, really just getting, like, as we say here in Jamaica, kind of bad mind about things. Just nothing in the mind ever feels positive when you're talking about your work, thinking about your work, everything just feels very negative. So again, that first one is ongoing exhaustion, that cynicism. And then the third thing that the World Health Organization points to for burnout is professional inefficacy. So that's a real fancy way of just saying, like, you're not productive at work anymore. You're not effective in what you are doing. And so I definitely experienced all three of those in burnout. I was a public school teacher for kids with special needs. And so for me, once I left the classroom after 12 years and went into administration, that is when the burnout really started happening, but I didn't even realize at the time. I kept thinking, oh, it's just this position that I'm in. It's not the right district. It's not the right office. It's not the right team. So I would quit that job and I would go to another one, and then the same things would keep happening. And then I started to think, oh, it's me. I'm doing something wrong. If I was just working harder or doing better, it wouldn't be like this. So then what do I start doing? Working harder, checking emails earlier in the morning, trying to be on top of all of this. And it took me from teaching in 1998 to 2017 for me to really realize, oh, you're burned out. Right. Because I was getting to the point where, I never helped the kids. The kids were fine, but I started having little to no patience for the adults. Just going, I cannot deal with you anymore. And for me, that was when I really started to realize that, oh, it's not me. It's not just the job, right? It's a compounding, and for me, I started waking up for the last 2 years. I'd wake up crying, right out of bed, like not even out of my bed. And I'm already crying, thinking about work and emails and this and that. And it's not a great way to start your day, and certainly not a way to be able to give back to others in that moment. So for me, it pushed me to an early retirement and leaving my country and starting a whole new life. Now, not everybody needs to do that, but some people will need to do that. And I think another thing I'd like to mention before I turn it over to Tami and have you share what it looked like for you is that there's actually 12 stages of burnout. And so as I came out of burnout, and now, in the healing work that I do and really deepening my understanding of researching burnout and what this looks like, the 12 stages were amazing. I was like, oh, look at that. So I'm not going to go through all 12 of them. I'll just share, the first one, because this was so critical for me, is the first stage of burnout is a strong desire to prove yourself. And I think that's an important one to share, because burnout doesn't happen to people that just show up for a paycheck and they don't care about the job. That doesn't cause burnout. But when you have this desire to prove yourself, that is the first stage. Jump forward to stage 5 of burnout. That is when you shift your priorities and start making work the most important thing. You start justifying why you don't spend as much time with your family or as much time doing fun things, because you've shifted your values to focusing on work. And that's actually a stage of burnout. And for me, that was I remember, like, I had to go back and think, but I was like, oh, I do remember. And for me, I was working with kids. And so it was easy for me to go, well, of course, my work is more important than anything, because if I'm not there for these kids, nobody else will be. And then the world's going to die. So I was, for me, it was an easy shift to making it my number one priority, of course, ultimately to the detriment of myself. So you can find on my blog, I have the ultimate guide to burnout, and I encourage you to read that. We'll drop a link or something fancy somewhere. I don't know what that looks like where people can find it. But my article goes through all the 12 stages of burnout, the very specific definition from the World Health Organization, and then lots of other information around preventing burnout and working through that. So again, I'm not going to go through all those 12 stages here. I encourage you to read the article and give us some feedback on that. With that said, Tammy, I would love for you to share with our listeners and our watchers what burnout looked like for you. You know, we come from very different places. You weren't a teacher at the time. You're much younger than me, but we both had this experience. So I'm really excited for people to hear what it looked like for you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I love that you touched on the stages, because a lot of times we're going through things, and if it doesn't look like one thing, we think, that's not what it is. And sometimes our brain or minds process things when we can, give it a name and understand what it is. And then we can look to say, okay, how can I get better from this? How can I learn from this? Or just how can I feel better? And for me, it was my years of, I've worked in the call center industry or BPO industry for like 10 years, basically. At first, I was really passionate about customer service. I genuinely wanted to just help people. I've always heard that, I have a nice voice, and even walking in places here in Jamaica, a lot of people know that the customer service sometimes may not be the best. It's very sparky, but
not just for Jamaica though, just for the record, we have terrible
fair enough. Fair enough. But like experiencing things like that, I've wanted to, provide better service. I felt like I want to do unto others as I would have them do unto me, I guess. So I went into customer service, and at first it was great. I felt like productive, everything was going well. And then I started to realize that I I felt like I wasn't doing enough. I felt like I needed to change up everything that I was doing. At first, I went through like about 3 centers, because around like 2 years, I'd feel like, no, something's wrong with this place, because I can do better. My stats aren't showing that, but it's the place. Like, I have to go. I would get promoted. I'd go in different positions, and I would be like, no, there's some corruption going on here. Like, I need to leave. I'm not thriving. And then I went to another place, which, for a while it was on my goal list to get there, because it was an ideal center to work. And so I went there. And then I started having the same feelings. So I said, all right, let me work harder. And I was doing it harder. Then I have young children. And there was a point where I would work so hard. I would dream about work to the point where when I get home, I wouldn't want to like talk. I don't want to have no playtime. I don't want to have any conversations. I just want to go on autopilot, do what I'm doing, and get it through. Then it led to me being at work and wondering, is this really all? Like, is this what I'm here for? What is happening? Then I would wake up in the mornings crying. I would go to sleep crying at night. I would wake up crying in the mornings. I would try caffeine, all sorts of things just to try and give me that extra boost in the morning. Sometimes, and I mean, this podcast is about us being real. Sometimes I would feel like I would rather anything happen than me having to go to work. I remember there was one point I started to wonder what was wrong with me. So I started going around to persons who were working there for like more than 5 years, 8 years and so. So I asked one, he was there for 12 years. So I said in my mind, he must, have a different perspective, something that can motivate me to feel like, all right, it's just something I need to change about myself. There's something I need to do better. I was trying to find that fix. And he said to me, no, I'm not happy here. There are mornings I want, like, I'm coming to work and I wish an accident would happen. Like, I'm not like hurt or anything, but something that happens where they can see that there's something wrong with me and I may have to get a checkup at the hospital, something, anything, maybe a broken leg to avoid coming to work. And Deanna, I mean, I just said okay, but when I went home, I kind of cried. I didn't know what to do with that information because I was on one hand feeling like I was failing at everything because I was doing it so hard at work and still not feeling that fulfillment, still not feeling anything that's giving me that spark. And then at home, by the time I'm home, I'm just so out of it from work that I can't deal with anything else. And then in the mornings, I'd wake up feeling like, again, we have to do this again. And I felt like it would never end. So for me, during this time, even right after this time, I didn't even know that there was a thing, like a legit thing as burnout, because I come from a family where a lot of persons, I'm sure in my generation, yours probably too, where we were raised by hard workers in the sense that they don't believe in resting. You should be up at 4 and you're productive from the moment you rise. You work 7 days a week. And if you can, you do 3 jobs. So they are just focused on working, working, working. And so that's how we were nurtured, even whether it be consciously or subconsciously, that's how we were nurtured. So it's in the back of our minds. If we feel like something's going on at work, maybe it's us. We need to just change something. We need to just do better. And it will lead to a point where we're going to get burnt out. So I love that I have this opportunity to, talk with you and for everyone else to hear it because now we have ways to see, like for myself, I wouldn't actually offer services for burnout personally because I'm not there yet at a level where I can help someone transform from that because I'm still healing through that. So I'm grateful for, like this opportunity for myself, for our listeners and viewers that they can look to you as that light to help them to understand more what it is, to help them to or help us, to fully grow through it and heal through it and get that kind of support that we need. Because this is about community. And yeah, a lot of persons may be experiencing the same things and don't know that's what it is, or they're still feeling from that nurturing that, hey, I just need to do harder. I just need to drink more coffee. I just need to balance my priorities more. They're always feeling like it's just them. But we have to realize at some point that we have to take a break. And before I even go back to you, another quick thing I wanted to say is that since you've been, in my life on this journey, I have been reminded to just be. And I'm grateful for that because for a few months, I felt like I was spiraling. I felt the burnout happening. And I know it's like specified mainly towards the workplace, but I don't know if you agree, but I think it does happen in your life when you're trying to work at being a parent or you're trying to work at being a partner or anything like that, because at the end of the day, that's still you working. So for a few months, I felt like I was spiraling. I saw it happening, but wasn't able to stop that momentum myself to just block it. And since we've been on this journey together of planning this podcast, of just meeting weekly and talking and here now, I have been getting gentle and not so gentle sometimes reminders to just be, to go gracefully at this life, to slow down. I have started to now, when I feel like I'm racing through something, I stop and say, okay, how would Deanna do this? What would she do? And I'm reminded in that moment to take a few breaths, take as many breaths as I need, and just go gracefully. So I'm really grateful for that.
Oh, I love that. And, it's interesting listening to your story because there are components of our stories that are very similar, right? Where we both thought, oh, we have to change jobs because there's something wrong with this place. So I did want to touch on that because in order to really address burnout in the workplace, it is at least a two-pronged approach because we have to look at, of course, what's happening to the individual, but really what is happening at the system level in that organization. And so, there are 6 different aspects that really need to be looked at, hopefully in a perfect setting, from the leaders of that organization. So I'm not going to go through all 6, but just to give you an idea, like one of them is workflow. They need to look at the leadership level, how is work flowing through the organization? What are the steps? How many platforms and people do things that people have to go through to get a decision made, for example. So workflow, communication in the workplace. I don't know about you, Tammy, but my guess is, and maybe all of us listeners and viewers, how many times have you worked in a place where you're like, oh my God, like I just wish they would communicate more effectively, like letting us know what is an expectation or what the rules are, whatever. But that piece at the organizational level needs to be looked at. The reality is burnout doesn't just happen to the person when you're looking at it from the workplace. Now, do we come as people with our own, I like to say, we say baggage, right? We come with our own little suitcase with us. This is my trauma. This is my beliefs. Like you were mentioning, Tammy, when you're growing up, we come from people who are like, hey, you need to work hard, pull up your bootstraps, do this. There's no time for rest, take care. What do you mean? Like that means you're lazy then. So we're all coming with our own programming and beliefs from our society, from people. And then, of course, I can only speak to working in the States. I mean, it's a very capitalist, like it is all about making money. Now, even though I'm coming from public education, it wasn't about making money. Nobody's making any money. But, there's policies to be followed and paperwork to be done. There's aspects of the job that they just have to be done, but they're not necessarily created by somebody, one, who understands what it's like to be the one in the trenches, what is the word I'm looking for? Executing, that's the word. Executing the law or the procedure or the this, it's like a lot of those are made by people way up high that have no idea what the person on the front lines is doing.
The front line.
Right. And so that, brings its own challenges. And then it's, looking at what are the values of that organization, of the leadership. If they are valuing productivity and, results, they're not thinking about how is this affecting Tammy? How is this affecting Deanna? They don't care because it's all about this. And so my hope and my intention with my burnout prevention services is to get in front of leaders in organizations, because that is where the change really needs to start, is looking at the people that are helping support your organization, whether you are a call center, a school, a nonprofit, a lawyer firm, whatever it is. How does the leadership view taking care of their people, if you will? And that's where I feel like a big conversation needs to shift and happen, is at that level. And so then, right, I mean, what does that piece again look like? Looking at workflow, looking at communication, looking at the values. And we need to do that as an individual as well. So one thing for me, I know that now that I can look back and go, what could I have done differently to help myself, even if I was working at a place where that wasn't their value? So one thing for me that I was not good at was setting healthy boundaries for work. So I would come home, I'm working long hours, then I come home and I'm still like, let me check my email, let me look at this. And I think you had mentioned, Tammy, like you're going to sleep thinking, I mean, I would dream like that I was in meetings at work. I would dream. I mean, it was just never ending. So then I wake up in the morning and I'm going, my God, I feel like I've worked all night long already because I'm thinking about it, dreaming about it. And then you wake up and here it is again. So again, just to reiterate that healthy boundary of that is what I really lacked at that time when it came to work, because I just felt like if I don't do all this, nobody else will. And then these kids are going to die. It's like, well, that's it. No, you don't work in an emergency room. No one's dying. Like, it's not going to happen. So Tammy, that brings me to you, looking back on your experience, what is something that you know now or wished that you had known then? Like, what would you have done differently now, like I said, knowing what you know now?
Yeah, knowing what I know now. I mean, one of the main things I would do for myself is to, yes, as you said, set healthy boundaries, because I would come to work early. I don't know. I felt stressed being at work, yet I would take up all the overtime slots I could find. I would just continue doing more work. I didn't give myself the opportunity to take a break. I didn't give myself the opportunity to just be me, because both in the workplace and, at home, you are in a position where you have to do certain things. There are expectations of you. I didn't take the time to just be me, not even for like 5 or 10 minutes for the day. So I would do that differently, because when you give yourself the opportunity to just be you, then you can refill your cup. You can't pour from an empty cup. When you're able to refill your cup and you go into the workplace, then you're able to provide the best of you that is expected of you. And then now, as you said, the company itself, the workplace itself, should look at it from a leadership perspective. When you, the person, the individual, when you're able to provide the best of you, when you're able to provide a full cup, a refueled you to the workplace, then the leaders will realize that, okay, she's doing what she's supposed to do. Let's do what we're supposed to do. And it leads me to a Jamaican proverb. I don't know if you've ever heard this one before, but it goes, if the head of the stream is dirty, then the rest of the river will be dirty. So
Oh, I
if
don't.
at the yeah,
Say,
if the head of the stream, if the head of the river is dirty, then the rest of the stream will be dirty. Yeah. And it goes on what you said, because if the leadership level, if it's not flowing, see, flow, if it's not
right.
flowing as it should be, then burnout is going to happen. It's going to happen because everything isn't channeling or flowing how it should. So I think, you should definitely get into a lot of places that probably even don't realize that it can be on both sides too, because then they would now have that knowledge to say, oh, okay, this is what we know, and okay, let's see what we can do with this knowledge. Because a lot of persons, a lot of companies too, we realize that they're looking at everything from a numbers perspective. They sometimes don't pay attention to the human element. And so they don't even stop to think that it could be them. Or maybe they do, but it's not a priority. That, it could be something that's going on. So it would be super awesome to see that change from like a workplace perspective.
Right. Well, and I think, the beautiful thing is I am prepared to have these conversations with leaders around ultimately it's going to make you more money. If you take care of your people, you will see that change in the future, because what will happen ultimately is, less of a staff turnover. You're going to keep your people. And so when you keep them and you've invested in training them, working with them, you don't want to let that go. It costs a lot of money to
To do
seek
it
to hire.
again.
people, right? You have to recruit, you have to spend money doing that, and then you get new people on board, you have to train them. And so I've seen in my experience, working at low income schools in California, a huge turnover rate. Huge, it's like teachers would come in brand new, full of enthusiasm, super excited. And after a few years, they are they're burning out. They cannot. And so they end up leaving. And ultimately, like I said, it ends up costing more money for a business, a school district, whoever that is, to keep hiring and training over and over again. So there is a fiscal benefit to them for looking at burnout prevention, looking at well-being. And it's just, I have faith in the universe. They'll put me in front of the right people that are ready for that conversation. And much like I consider myself and Tami change makers, and so I feel like getting in front of the right change makers at the leadership level can really make a huge impact, all the way around on preventing burnout. Now that brings me to, what about recovering from burnout? That is a whole other beast, if you will. My services are mainly focused on preventing burnout, not necessarily the recovery of burnout, but recovery for burnout can take years, and it really is different for everybody. Right. I mean, it's digging deeply into what specifically, was the cause for the burnout for this one person. And that is not always easily uncovered because it is different for everybody. Now, who is the person for you to ask about that? I feel like that is also different for everybody. Traditional therapy is not something that works for everybody. It is something that works for lots of people. So that could be an avenue to really getting into why did you in particular burn out. In the article on my blog for the ultimate guide, there is a link in there for a self-assessment that you can take online through Stanford University. Now, I will say that, it'll just give you a picture. Nothing is going to give you like every single detail. There's not an assessment for that. I mean, there is an assessment called the Maslow Burnout Inventory that's been around and been revised many years. It's been around since the 80s. And I touch on this assessment in the article, but there's also a caution with that. That assessment was really more developed for supporting researchers. And so it's not meant for an individual to go, take the MBI and that's going to tell you if you're burned out. That's not what it's for. But it's a great discovery tool that leaders can use within an organization. You can use the MBI as part of a burnout prevention program to really kind of uncover the unique aspects in your organization that could contribute to burnout. So again, I mean, I encourage you to go online, take the little self-assessment at Stanford. It just kind of gives you an idea, like, where are you at right now? Doctors often, burnout is not a medical diagnosis at this time. It's not. So doctors will often, tell people, oh, you have anxiety or you have depression. Some of those definitely mimic, symptoms of burnout. Burnout is a much larger thing than just anxiety and depression. Again, those are components of it for sure, but not the best just indicators that this is specific what is happening to you. So yeah, I just think that taking that little online quiz will just give you a little bit of an idea of where you are. And then again, with recovery, for me personally, it meant I needed to change my career because I was just at the point, and I had promised myself, if I ever got to the point where I felt so cynical about going to work, that I would quit, because that impacts the teachers, it impacts the administrators, and all of that trickles down to the kids. And so for me, I was like, it's not fair for me to stay doing this work until I get myself right, and then for me, it became a career change. So now I'm the massage therapist, the Reiki master, the teacher, still teaching, but just, doing yoga instead of that, something different. And again, I mean, it could take years, to fully and deeply recover from that. And, something really simple that I would highly recommend and comes as an evidence-based practice to actually help recovery from burnout. There's three things. One is mindfulness. That is an evidence-based proven technique that supports recovering burnout, but it also helps preventing it. So that's a beautiful thing. Of course, yoga, that is another evidence-based practice for recovering from burnout, preventing burnout. And, I don't want people to feel like when I say yoga, it means, oh, you have to stand on your head and do all these crazy body postures. No, like there's so much more to yoga than just the postures. And then the third thing that really helps, and again, evidence-based with burnout, is somatic practices. And what I mean by that is getting back into the body. Because oftentimes, I know for me, it's very easy for me to live in the mind space all the time. And I'm running up here, I am solving the world's problems, I am doing all kinds of things up here. And then I have to be very intentional to bring myself back into the body. So that can be the postures for yoga, breath work, tapping on the body. There's lots of different somatic practices that really can help. And, trauma is held in the body. And to me, burnout is a form of trauma. So all of the things that have led to someone ending up in burnout, there's a lot in the body that needs to be released. And two of the simplest things, lay down and do nothing and take a lot of deep breaths. Like those two things right there are going to help heal the nervous system, give you a reset, so you don't have to have a whole heap of fancy, expensive things. You can start with just those two things right there to help you. So, Tami, what was something for you specifically that you did when you were recovering? You said you're still healing, but what is a practice that you find really helpful for you?
There are actually two things that work really well for me on like a every morning basis. Remember, we're coming from a place where, we wake up a bit stressed. We wake up down with tears. Now, there was one day where I heard about this. I think it was an African practice, where when you wake, you take a few minutes, hold your body, hold yourself, and thank your body for holding you. Thank your body for holding your light. Thank your body for waking up. Send your consciousness through the different areas of your body to just make sure what you went to sleep with last night is what you have physically with you. And that has helped me to start my days off in such a mindful and calm way where the impact of sudden changes or certain things that would have normally triggered that burnt out feeling or that, memory of that severe feeling, it helps me to prevent that when I have those mindful moments at waking. And it helps me to remember in each moment to be more grateful. That has helped me a lot because now I know that with rest, with, as we said, what I wish I knew then, with giving myself time to just be, I know that I can do the things that I set out to do. I can do the things that I agreed to do. And then knowing that at the end of the day or at the start of the next day, I am me without having to do anything except honoring me. So that helped me a lot. And another practice, which is still mindfulness, that helps me is throughout the day, if I feel stressed or start feeling triggered or start feeling like I'm about to have a bad day, because back in those periods, Deanna, when I wake up, if something happens and I say it's going to be a bad day, I have a heart. The entire day is done. And it would be 7:30 in the morning, me check an email, seeing an email that just stressed me. And I'm like, it's done. It's
Bad day.
done. I'd get a phone call at 9:30 in the morning and it's over. The end on a Monday, the entire week is done. And now, fast forward to now, healing through it and on the recovery end, what I do if something happens, first of all, I don't check my phone before 8:30 in the morning. At night, my phone goes on do not disturb. I am not even looking at it. Don't expect me to reply to an email at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's not happening. That's not healthy. So now in the days, if something feels as if it's about to trigger me, or I feel like something in that moment, I had a bad moment, instead of carrying that energy throughout the rest of my day, I take a minute. I either excuse myself, I go take a walk, or I go sit somewhere quiet, and I I do a witnessing meditation, is what I call it. I close my eyes and I just be. I sit, I listen without involving. I feel the wind on me. If there's wind, I feel the sun or I feel the rain, whatever it is, I just allow myself to be in that present moment for at least 5 minutes. And it reminds me to just breathe and be. And it brings me back to center. So whatever happened 5 minutes ago that pissed me off, I'm good. I'm no longer pissed. I am not bringing that with me. If it's 5:30 and I said I'm gonna be finished by 6 and something happens 5 to 6, I'm gonna be done and I'm gonna take that 5 minutes and bring myself back to where I need to be, because that should not spoil my day, night, evening, or my sleep. So those two things, having the mindful moment in the day, just being if something triggers me, and also waking up and giving my body like just that thanks, that gratitude, those two things have helped me a lot because they give me the opportunity to just be. We forget sometimes that we're human beings and not human doings. So it gives me the opportunity to be that human being.
Well, and something you said really resonated with me around taking that mindful moment throughout the day. I know for me, if I start feeling an irritation towards someone or something, I'm like, oh, that is my sign that I need to take a moment for myself.
Yep.
And like you said, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, that's the beautiful thing is you can do a quick reset in the moment. It doesn't take a long time, to really shift. And so I know when I was a school administrator and at my last administrative job, I was in charge of 13 schools. So it was like a circus every day. Like I'm going to work. Sometimes I'm at 6 different schools in one day for different meetings. And so I started like in my car, I would lock the doors of my car, put my phone on airplane mode, and set a timer for 2 minutes. And I'm just like, you know what? Whatever it is can wait for 2 minutes. Like it's not that long. And in that 2 minutes, just that feeling of knowing my phone is off, nobody can find me. Like it's only 2 minutes. I'm in my car, the doors are locked. All right, I'm just gonna close my eyes, right? And I would just close my eyes, take some deep breaths. All right. And that 2 minutes started to feel like a long time in a good way,
In a good way.
Right. Like the body, yes, the body would love.
You're so rejuvenated after.
Right. Like the body would love if you could lay down and close your eyes for 30 minutes. Amazing. You might not have the time for that, but we can all take 2 minutes. Even if, and I used to do this too, especially my kids were little, I go, mommy has to go to the bathroom. In the bathroom.
Bathroom is the safe haven.
It's like that is a safe place, even at work. And so if you have to do it in the bathroom, fine. But take that 2 minutes, because when we close our eyes and we breathe deeply, it tells our nervous system that we are safe. And when our nervous system goes, oh, we're safe, that's when we can naturally calm the body down. And it doesn't take a lot, a couple of minutes can be really, really rejuvenating. So, and I think as we close our episode for today, I just want to kind of summarize 3 important things for burnout that I would love for you guys to remember. If you remember none of our conversation today, take away these things: that burnout doesn't happen overnight. It's accumulation of factors. And just remember, there's 12 stages of burnout. So, again, it does not happen overnight. And the second thing is that burnout can often be mistaken by doctors as anxiety, depression. Doctors, it's not a medical diagnosis. So they may not even think, oh, this could be what is happening. So just be aware of that. If you're not feeling great and the doctor tells you have anxiety, that may be true. I'm not saying it's not, but it could be a symptom of something different like burnout. And then the last thing to remember is that there's one really big key to preventing burnout, and that is awareness. So just being aware that burnout exists, being aware that it doesn't happen overnight, being aware that it's a workplace phenomenon as well as we know, a life experience too. If you've had trauma, for me, trauma just exacerbated that burnout, because I had other things to heal. So just being aware, that's the first step to really being able to prevent it, is having an understanding that it exists and what it might look like for you. So are there any final words that you want to share, Tami, about anything before we close? And we'll end with a mindful minute when it's time.
We will. And that actually leads into my final word. My final word is to remember to take some time for yourself. Like, even us, you and I, Deanna, we do have schedules. We do have people that are expecting our attention in whatever way, professionally, personally, and it's life. That is how our lives are. But in all things, remember to give yourself the opportunity to just be. Just be. Because everyone is important to you, yes, but you have to remember you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to remember to just be. That's my final word.
Love that. And don't wake up in the morning and look at your phone right away.
Yeah, no, give yourself some time.
Right. I know for me, that's been a huge shift too. Like you were saying, Tami, that you put your phone on do not disturb at night. Like that is such an important piece of taking care of yourself, is not putting that energy right into your head, especially for the morning when we wake up and we're in that beautiful kind of soft part of wake. Right. It's like you do not, and that used to be me grabbing for that phone, like right, and then I'm stressed.
And that is a powerful time to actually change your life too for the better, but that I'm sure is another episode all to itself. So we will get there, but that is a life-changing habit that is seemingly simple, but it's massive. Just give yourself to you in the mornings and not to like everyone else first thing.
Yeah, and we'd love to hear from you in the comments or send us an email. I don't know, whatever the cool ways are that you can connect with us, and let us know, what habits do you have that now you're thinking of maybe shifting after listening to this, or if you have some questions for us around, anything that we talked about today, we would certainly love to hear from you. And I just feel compelled to say too that, we're not going to edit our podcast episodes, just so you know. We've talked a lot about this. You're getting the real thing from us in real time. So if, today so far has been great, but if you hear barking dogs, husbands walking around, children crying, that is just our life. That is how it is. And really,
it's not so black and white.
Right. Like we just want to really be authentic here. And so we're not going to be doing a whole leap of editing of any of our podcast episodes. So you will be able to see and hear us in all of the realness, whatever that might look like in the
On
moment.
any day.
Right. And so we thank you so much for being here with us. We are really excited for our next episode. I guess I'm going to give a little teaser because our next episode is around mindful consumption. So look forward to that one coming at you, I guess, next week, right? Because we're every week filming.
Yep.
Yep. And so let's go ahead and close our episode today. I invite everybody, if you're driving, please don't close your eyes. Probably not a good idea. As long as you're in a safe place, close your eyes. If it's not okay for you to close them, that is fine as well. But we just want to take a moment here in just some quiet to let everything sink in that you just listened to, and just allow yourself for a moment here to just be. Maybe here, if you feel called, to just go ahead and take a nice deep breath. I'm thanking everyone again with such deep gratitude for being here with us. We are so excited to share this time and space with you. And we are sending out big, big waves and vibrations of love and gratitude to all of you today.